Hello. Okay, we are officially on the air. So this is the Q&A with the Illinois Law Admissions team. I just want to welcome everybody today. We have a group of people here who are eager to answer your questions, and that really is the purpose of the webinar. And we are just looking forward to answering all of your questions. So just from a logistical perspective, really quickly, I wanted to let everybody know who is participating as a viewer. There is a, you're going to see on your upper right corner about 9 small little boxes. You can click on that, and that is where you want to go if you want to see the stream of questions that are being asked, and then you can also ask a question yourself. Just submit a new question by clicking on the green box and typing it in. And then if you see questions coming through on that right sidebar that you like and you would like to see us answer those questions, you can click a +1 on that, and then we'll make sure to try and get those questions answered. So I'm going to start it off by just handing it over to everybody else. I'm just going to be the moderator today. I'm the Director of Communications here at Illinois Law. So I do marketing and communications for the college. And I'm going to hand it off to everybody else who's participating in the webinar to let them introduce themselves. So we'll start with Becky.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Ray. I'm the Assistant Dean for Admissions and Financial Aid here at the college. I am also a 2004 graduate of the University of Illinois College of Law. I practiced commercial litigation in Chicago for 8 years before returning to the college in my current role in 2012. So I look forward to answering your questions and hopefully meeting some of you. Thanks.
Oh, I guess I'll go next. My name is Suzanne Rogers. I'm the Associate Director for Admissions here at the College of Law. I've been in this role for about 8 years. I am not an attorney, but my background is in higher ed administration. I support Becky in what she does, so I help with recruiting, help with student counseling. I manage the admitted student open houses in the spring, 2 of those, and meeting with students, talking on panels and such, and I also welcome you and hope that we can answer all your questions today.
I'll go next. My name is Magdala Boyer. I am a second-year law student here, and like Becky, I am a double alumni in the class of 2014. I am also a part of the cybersecurity program here, and I look forward to answering any questions that anyone might have about student life and academics.
I'll go next. My name's Eric Johnson. I'm a professor at the College of Law. I teach evidence, criminal law, criminal procedure. I've been at the college for 6 years now. I've also served on the college's admissions committee, so I suppose I can answer questions that are related to the admissions process from the faculty's perspective, but mostly I'm here to answer questions about the law school experience and how students interact with the faculty.
Hi, I'm Vic Amar. I am the Dean here at the College of Law. I'm actually somewhat new to Illinois. I joined the school as the Dean and a professor a few months ago, but I've been a law professor for a couple of decades at a number of law schools in the University of California system, so I'm quite familiar with legal education throughout the country, especially at public schools, but also more generally. And I'm really excited to be here. I think we have a great School of Law. I wouldn't have come here as Dean if I didn't think so. And I, too, am happy to answer any questions you might all have.
Great. So while we wait for some questions from the audience to come in, we have, some questions prepared, answers to questions prepared as well. So I figured we would kick things off by actually hearing more from Dean Amar about just, as the new dean coming in, what are you hoping to focus on here at Illinois Law? What are some of your priorities, and how do you plan on engaging with the students?
Thanks, Krista. There's a lot in that question. First, I'll say that the College of Law is very strong in all the ways that you really care about. It's got a very productive, engaged faculty who are not just influential with regard to other academics and policymakers, but also who really like to be in the classroom. So we have a very good faculty. We have a very strong student body, and I think it's important for law students to realize that they're going to be colleagues with other students, and they should pick a school that has good students as well as good faculty. And then we have, in addition to a great supportive administrative staff, we have really good connections with a wonderful alumni base, which is one reason why our employment numbers are very good compared to most schools in the country in these challenging times. The vast majority of our students get jobs that they're very happy with, and the staff here works to make sure that that's as close to 100% as possible. In terms of what I would like to focus on, there's a lot that legal education can and should be doing, but two things I would identify in particular are accessibility, affordability. I personally want to make sure we're doing everything we can to allow everyone who's got talent to attend a first-rate law school like Illinois without being overly worried about the debt and having to pay it back. So that means reducing costs here. That means raising money, which we have been doing for private and governmentally subsidized scholarships. It means helping students get jobs that pay good money so that they can pay back whatever loans they might have, most of which come from their undergraduate experience, to be honest. So I really do want to make sure that people aren't deterred from pursuing an education here, or at least exploring it based on cost. The second thing I should say is I want the College of Law to be more connected to the other important constituents, that's the other units on campus, to take advantage of this great research world-class university, but also to the profession. We have a program in Chicago where students spend part of their third year if they want to. We have a ton of alums in major metropolitan areas like Chicago, New York, DC, California, but we also have alums throughout the state of Illinois and in less populated regions of the Midwest, and also cities like St. Louis and Indianapolis. But in general, I want the students here to be connected to the judges and lawyers and legislators whose ranks they're going to join after they graduate. In the last generation, I think there has been a bit of a gulf that has emerged between what law professors do and what law schools do on the one hand, and what the rest of the profession does on the other, and I'd like to narrow that as much as possible.
Great. So let's get a little bit of the student perspective. Maggie, can you tell us what made you choose to come to Illinois Law?
Well, I definitely had Illinois on my list because I was an undergrad here and I love the campus. I spoke with the pre-law department here, and they really were advocating Illinois and the experience. And one of the big things that really stood in my mind was financial aid. Originally I thought of, leaving the state and sort of going to a private private law school, but to be honest, we all know that law school is expensive, and Illinois has the Illinois guarantee that really seemed very, very, attractive to me, having my tuition sort of pegged at a certain point, and so giving me that opportunity to understand that I would have a certain level of tuition to be paid throughout my entire 3 years. And also it would make the experience a lot more easy in terms of adaptability. I know that the first year of law school is really intense and kind of crazy, and there's something to be said for being already in an environment that you're used to, and then taking up the studies afterwards. And so that really helped me to transition a lot more easily than I would say I would have if I had gone somewhere completely foreign to myself.
And can I just expand on the Illinois guarantee that Maggie spoke about, just to explain for our viewers what that is. Illinois guarantees your tuition rate for all 3 years of that you're enrolled in the College of Law. So whatever you pay in tuition your first year is what you will pay in your 2L and 3L year, regardless of whether or not the tuition rate for incoming students goes up. In addition to that, we also guarantee your scholarship for all 3 years, provided you remain enrolled at the College of Law. So you know when you're making your decision what you will be paying in tuition for all 3 years.
You know, and I might even build a little bit on what Becky just said, both because, you know, not all law schools do keep tuition at the same level based on what one comes in at. And many schools, unfortunately, have conditioned scholarship retention on certain performance that we don't do as long as you're still an enrolled student. But as all applicants to law school know, you know, not everybody pays the full tuition. So we have tuition that is prescribed and that is set. But we work hard to make sure that everybody we admit has a combination of a package of assistance that enables her or him to attend without taking on too much in the way of debt. So people who like the academic program that we have here, and there's a lot to like, should definitely apply and explore what we have to offer, and then if he or she is admitted, after that we'll work with them to fashion a package that is acceptable.
And then, Becky, we also have scholarship opportunities available regularly once you're a matriculant, correct?
That's absolutely correct, Krista. So I work with our Dean of Students, Virginia Vermillion, to make our students aware of outside scholarship opportunities. We also make our admitted students aware of outside scholarship opportunities by way of our admitted student newsletter. Most, you know, outside scholarships are designed for enrolled students, so there aren't as many for admitted students that have not yet enrolled. So, you know, once you enroll, we have a weekly newsletter that goes out, including all of the outside scholarship opportunities for our students. And there's also an intranet site that includes all of the scholarships that are outside scholarships that are available for our students. And it also includes countdowns to the deadline, so you know when those applications are due. I've worked with students to, you know, help identify applications or scholarships that they might be eligible for, and that, you know, they'd be a competitive applicant. I know that Dean Vermillion has done the same. And one of our students, one of our 1Ls actually received a very nice scholarship from an outside source, you know, that she received as an incoming 1L. So we do publicize those opportunities to both our incoming and current law students.
Great. So while we're kind of talking about tuition and just some of the things that prospective students might be concerned about with the application process, why don't we talk a little bit about what we are looking for in our applicants? And I think that's a question that probably a lot of you could answer, so I don't know who wants to take the first stab, but
I'll stab. I will stab. So essentially, what I always tell students is we are looking for an overall strength of an applicant. And that's going to mean different things for different people, quite honestly. And it's going to mean different things at different times of the year. Certainly, as an institution, we have overall goals, so we also keep those things in mind. But we certainly are looking at numbers. We have to look at numbers, but they do not tell the complete story ever. We take a very comprehensive review of the application to find out what activities a student has been involved in, what has been their undergraduate experience, what has been the curriculum that they've been involved in, what kind of leadership roles have they taken. Are they able to articulate themselves well in a personal statement? What do their references look like? Are they academic references? Are they traditional, non-traditional students? We really try to take it all into consideration to determine whether that person has something to add to the classroom experience. And as far as numbers go, because people always ask, what is the average, or you know, I'm a splitter, or these kind of questions, I say numbers are everything and they're nothing, because we have certainly obviously admitted people at the high end and denied people at the low end, but the reverse is true too. We have denied people at the high end of numbers and accepted people at the lower end, because we do try to make sure that the student is going to be somebody who's going to be successful here. And so that goes back to, that can be different for different people. Things that we really look hard at and seem to become an issue are character issues, and we really do try to be very serious about those things. Character issues, we've seen them all, and literally up to and including murder. So it's really important. I know it sounds so funny, but it is true. We really encourage students to be very honest with us in disclosing any kind of issues that they have had. We take a harder look at issues if they're coming in junior senior year versus freshman sophomore year. But once you get to a junior senior level, we expect that maybe the craziness of early college experience is leveled out, and you're starting to look toward the future and you know, and get serious about your next step. So we just take everything into consideration to try to give the most fair and fair review to our applicants.
Eric, would you have anything to add to that from a faculty perspective, being somebody who's actually served on the faculty admissions committee?
Basically, no. No, I think Suzanne covered just about everything. The fact that we do look for, you know, all different kinds of students can wind up being wonderful students in Illinois. It may well be a student who went to an Ivy League college for undergraduate, or it might be a student who started out at a community college and then only later was able to transfer to a four-year college and work through college in order to support themselves. Good applicants can take all kinds of different forms, and I don't think any of us goes into this with blinders on looking for a particular LSAT, a particular GPA. There was a story in the New York Times this morning about law schools and how some law schools are admitting people on the low end of the LSAT spectrum, and I think the story sort of assumed, well, LSAT's sort of a very reliable, absolutely infallible indicator of somebody's quality. At a school that I taught at previously, I admitted a student with a very low LSAT who wound up being first in her class and who's now a partner at a prominent law firm. So LSAT's not everything. Grades aren't everything. It's really looking at the whole package and finding the people who we think would fit well here.
You know, I might add another quality that isn't often discussed, but I think is actually sought after by all good law schools, including Illinois, and that's intellectual curiosity. You know, we want to take people who have aptitude, and you know, as Suzanne said, numbers are not the be-all, end-all, but they're not irrelevant either, because numbers do correlate in the main with aptitude. And there are law schools that are irresponsibly admitting large numbers of people who don't project the likelihood of passing the bar and entering the profession. That's something we got to acknowledge. Illinois is not guilty of that, and a lot of these critiques paint in way too broad brushstrokes. You know, we remain selective not just because it looks good for us, but because we want to make sure that we're enrolling and training people who have high chances of really succeeding in the profession and the world, which doesn't mean that we don't take a lot of chances. We do take chances on people who may not have as strong an indicator in one way or another. But aptitude is obviously a big factor. Suzanne mentioned character. Character is a big factor, especially in this legal profession. You can be the smartest person in the world, but if you're not of good moral character, you can't be a lawyer, let alone be a good lawyer. So that's something that we really do consider on a case-by-case basis. But beyond that, we also want people who have some kind of a zeal for learning. And who really want to take the knowledge and the skills that we're going to help them get there and do something with them. People who are curious and ambitious and energetic. And you know, you really can't get those kind of people without delving deeply into the specifics of each application, which is why we devote a lot of time and energy with our admissions staff and our faculty. Eric adverted to the fact that he was on the faculty committee. We spend a lot of time to really make individualized assessments.
Okay. Maybe you could talk a little bit about how you decided which schools you wanted to apply to.
Well, first and foremost, I definitely utilized the pre-law services at my college. They were extremely helpful because I mean, I was the first to go to college in my family and first to ever go to grad school in my family, so that was a big thing. I couldn't really go to my parents or aunts and uncles and ask, so I needed that extra, you know, help, and pre-law services definitely was that for me. So from there, I went to pre-law services, and they sort of coached me through the process on when to take the LSAT and when to, or what websites to consult. So at first, before I even went to pre-law services, I just went to like U.S. News and Rankings and sort of did that thing. But my pre-law services advisor sort of told me that was much too superficial a search. And so the way that I really got into the numbers and the statistics and really got a deeper understanding for what it means to apply to law school, I went to look at the ABA disclosures, and I went to the NALP website and sort of looked at the numbers for different law schools in different regions that I was interested in, and saw really, you know, what sort of jobs people were going into after graduation, and what sort of you know, GPAs and LSATs were being admitted within the program. I also even looked at just basically blogs on financial aid and seeing sort of what kind of aid people would typically get from these places, because as I've mentioned before, that was also really important. And so sort of looking at this entire picture in its totality, I made my decision for U of I Law, and it ranked up there with what I really wanted, which was, you know, employability, comfort, and, you know, monetary savings.
And is there anything in particular that you did to prepare for your 1L year coming into law school, or is there anything that you wished you had done?
I wish I would have relaxed even more. I definitely, I'm an advocate for not trying to study the law or, you know, read up too much on, you know, what law school is like. I think you should just go in there with like no idea, because a lot of people tend to, you know, do too much research, and I feel like they freak themselves out. And I've met those people. I think I did better because I basically didn't know what I was getting myself into, and it was a fun ride, I will tell you that. Scary at times, but it was fun. But I think people should just relax, go on vacation if they can. I worked the summer before I came, but I took a week or so off and went to New Orleans and just enjoyed my life a little bit more before law school. So I say just relax.
I would echo those sentiments, Maggie. Maggie knows that during the summer leading up to 1L year, after you've been admitted, we do send information to our admitted students and our students that are planning on enrolling about how to prepare for law school. A lot of that centers around relaxing, spending time with family and friends, doing the things that you enjoy, getting your affairs in order, you know, buying your parking pass, and you know, learning the way around town and that kind of thing. I was one of those people that read a book before coming to law school that completely freaked me out. I bought like a bunch of horn books and other things that I maybe opened twice and didn't know what they meant. We do have some recommended reading for our incoming students that is not required, but some people are like me and can't help themselves. So these are books that are actually helpful rather than books that are meant to, sort of freak you out. I will say the book I read did not represent the experience I had at Illinois. It was, a book that talked about people, undermining each other, ripping pages out of reporters, and, doing things to advantage, one person's time at the college above other students, and that was not my experience here. I don't know. I have never heard of our students behaving that way toward each other. So, I think a lot of the publicity and books that are available about 1L year, some of them are good, and we will send you a list of those, but others are not representative of at least our experience.
Yeah. And to echo that, if you're going to read the books, you should just read it like on the beach somewhere, so that you're really relaxing.
All right. So why don't we switch gears a little bit and talk about what life is like at Illinois Law once you're actually here. So Becky and Suzanne, and Eric too, actually, any of you could probably talk about this. Could you tell us a little bit more about some of the specialty programs that we offer, and maybe expand a little bit on the Chicago program too, since that is something that we talk a lot about with prospective students?
Well, the Chicago program is actually a relatively young program yet. It was started in 2012. And it was really created to address where our students are most likely to want to be employed post-graduation. Chicago is by far the place that people are seeking after graduation. It drops off fairly precipitously after that, but to meet the demand for what's going on in Chicago, this program was developed. It is geared toward third-year students, their last semester, and has a business focus, also an area of great interest, and it takes place in Chicago. And the program has been very well received, and such that I think there is some preliminary talk about possibly expanding in the future. The people I've talked to just across the board have really enjoyed getting to know more about that program. People are very excited about the possibility of participating in that program, living here for most of their law career, and then going to Chicago that last semester. Another advantage that we have, I think it's a great advantage actually, is that our Assistant Dean for Career Planning and Professional Development is actually based in Chicago. So his whole job is advocating for our students in Chicago. So he is not remote in that sense. He is there for our students right as they're getting ready to embark on their professional careers, and so I think that is a wonderful advantage that we have.
I might jump in here, Krista, and add a few things. First of all, if you take a step back and look at the direction that legal education is going, it seems pretty clear, at least to me, that experiential learning, students actually immersed in real-life legal situations, whether that's clinical education or externships or practicums, that's an increasingly important aspect of the three-year law school experience. Folks may remember that a few years ago, President Barack Obama threw out the suggestion that perhaps law school ought to be 2 rather than 3 years. And I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon, but what I do think is that a year or so of law school is going to evolve into a very hands-on, skills-based, practical experience. And the Chicago program is one of the many things that we're doing to really make that experience as robust as it can be. Suzanne mentioned that a lot of our students want to go to Chicago after graduation. Not all of them do, and we, as I said, place people throughout the country and throughout the state. But Chicago does offer a lot of opportunities to engage in a very vibrant, dynamic, and huge legal market. I mean, it's the 3rd biggest legal market in the United States. So I would say the Chicago program is representative of the kind of broad-based approach that we have towards our curriculum and towards student experience. It's not the only piece, but it's a very visible piece. and it's one that I think helps set us apart from a lot of other good schools in the region that can't, the way we can really offer the best of both worlds. We can offer a great world-class interdisciplinary research university set in a very distraction-free environment, especially in the first few years where you're learning a lot of basics. But then as you begin to transition to the profession, we offer this signal experience in this incredible legal market, whether you're going to stay there long-term or not. The skills you develop there and the connections that you make there are going to serve you well going forward.
And just to add, as Dean Amars said, we do have, a broad-based legal education that we offer to our students. I think, prospective students are often interested in particular strengths that each law school they're considering has, and we certainly have some areas in which, we do have particular strength, both in regard to faculty, research, and scholarship, and in curricular offerings and where our students end up working in what field. So I would typically say that intellectual property and technology in the law is one of our strengths here at Illinois, both in terms of curricular offerings. Maggie's part of our Illinois Cybersecurity Scholars Program, which is a direct result of the university's strength in technology, computer science and electrical engineering, and the law school's strength in technology and the law. So she can talk a little bit about that program. We also have strengths in criminal law, business and corporate law. I would put bankruptcy and income tax in that same category. We have, some incredible faculty in that area. Family law, constitutional law, and I think we have some interesting things happening in the area of environmental law as well, because we offer a joint degree with the Natural Resources and Environmental Sciences Department, and our faculty that teach environmental law here at the college are all coming from different disciplines. So, our moral philosopher, she teaches in criminal law or teaches in environmental law, and has taken students to Costa Rica, to the oil fields in Odessa, Texas, and is planning a trip to the Rio Grande in Texas as well. One of our property faculty, Eric Freifogle, comes at environmental law from a wildlife perspective and conservationist perspective. So, and Professor Kaysen, who's one of our intellectual property and patent faculty, looks at biofuels and some of the ways that technology can improve sustainability in the environment. So I think that is actually of interest to a lot of students, primarily because it comes from all sorts of different disciplines. That a student can craft a really nice curriculum in that particular area.
And Eric, you teach criminal law. Could you expand a little bit on the criminal law curriculum?
Well, we obviously have a classroom component, and students will take criminal law in their first year. They'll have the option of taking criminal procedure. There are 2 criminal procedure courses. There's evidence, there are upper division electives, but there are also an awful lot of opportunities for experiential learning that bears directly on criminal law. There are trial practice programs. There are trial practice competitions. They're moot court competitions that include a lot of criminal law issues. A lot of our students wind up doing externships and internships in the area of criminal law, and I know this mostly because I get to interact with them a lot in their second and third years. During the second and third years, whether you do Chicago or not, students are generally very heavily involved in the experiential component of law school through a clinic, through an externship, through moot court competitions, and so I'll interact with them a lot in that context, particularly because I teach evidence. Evidence is the kinds of issues that arise in trial practice, in criminal defense, in criminal prosecution, often are evidentiary issues about how you get a particular piece of evidence admitted. And so with great regularity, students who are dealing with a case, oftentimes it'll be a criminal case, sometimes it'll be a civil rights case. We have a wonderful civil rights clinic that I'm a big fan of. They will come to my office and talk to me about how they can get a particular piece of evidence admitted in court, or how they can get a particular piece of evidence kept out of court. And so, and it's not always, the students that I'm talking to about these issues are not always the students who are the top students in my evidence class or my criminal law class. because not everybody excels in a classroom setting, and so some of the students that I wind up spending the most time with in their second and third years dealing with actual concrete problems are students who, maybe felt a little bit lost in evidence, and boy, it's wonderful to have that opportunity to talk to them about real concrete problems. And I should say I do make an effort to inject that kind of real life experience in the classroom as well, but nothing that really compares to what they're doing with the experiential component in their second and third year.
Also in the criminal law field, I want to mention our postgraduate fellowships. We've had great success placing students in state's attorney's offices and public defender offices after graduation in our postgraduate fellowships, and that those have turned into full-time placement for many of our students and gives them the experience, real courtroom experience that they need to get competitive jobs in criminal law.
Hearing all that prompts me to add one more thing. And it goes back to a comment someone made earlier about, I think it was Becky's, about students focusing on different law schools because they have particular strengths. One of the things that drew me to Illinois to become a professor here and the dean is that it has strength across the board. Roughly speaking, you can divide the world of law and the world of legal education into two big categories: public law and private law. So public law would include fields like constitutional law, my own field, where I feel we have a great group of people here, and criminal law, criminal procedure, administrative law, fields of law in which individuals or groups are interacting with the government in some kind of way. Private law would include areas like contract law and corporations law, securities law, intellectual property to some extent, where people are coming together in consensual ways and crafting contractual relationships, and the question is how the law recognizes those. A lot of schools are good in public law but not private law. A lot of schools are good in private law but not public law. But when it comes to the faculty, the curricular offerings, the experiential component, I think Illinois is very strong across the board and is a good place for people to come no matter what they think their interests are. And one reason why it's important, I think, for students to try to go to a school that's strong across the board is the majority of law students end up changing their mind while they're in law school about what they're going to do after they graduate. It's great to have some good reason to go to law school and to think you know what you want to do. And so for some people, since they were 6 years old, they knew they were going to be a public defender or a prosecutor or a bankruptcy lawyer, whatever it is, although that might be a little weird for a 6-year-old. But most people end up not really knowing what fields of law grab them until they get exposed to them in law school. So you want to make sure that you go to a school that has great people across the range, and we do.
Great. So I want to go back to something that Eric was talking about before, and basically it sounds like you really have an open door policy with your students. Can you talk a little bit about just the faculty-student interaction at Illinois Law, and just from a general perspective how accessible the faculty are, and maybe we can get Maggie's perspective on this as well.
Yeah, I mean, they seem very accessible to me. The faculty members that I spend the most time around basically are in their offices just about all the time. I'm in my office. I'm on sabbatical this semester, so I'm around less. But usually I'm around basically 8 hours a day, and my office is generally open, and students drop by a lot. And it's not just, as I said, some of it is students who are currently taking a class from me. Criminal law students, for example, as they're wrestling with a difficult topic in their first year, will often want to talk through issues, talk about things they've read in the newspaper, try and figure out what a particular case is about, and that's definitely part of it. But as I said, a lot of students I maintain close contact with throughout their legal career, throughout their law school career, despite the fact that maybe they just took one class from me. They'll come to me and talk about even problems that have arisen in their part-time jobs, in their externships, in their trial practice course, in other courses, and so they'll also come and talk to me a lot about career opportunities, because I was a government attorney for a very long time before I became a law professor. I probably have a pretty good sense of how applying to government positions, public defender positions, prosecutor positions works, and so I tend to talk to a lot of students who are interested in that sort of government or public interest type law work. So I do interact with students on that level as well. Again, the moot court competitions are a big part of the law school culture. I'm coaching a moot court team this Thursday. All the professors, I think, participate in that kind of involvement in the students. So I do think there's a kind of interaction between the faculty and the students that definitely wasn't present at the law school that I went to. And it may be that law school cultures have just changed, but I know that at least at Illinois, the faculty, as a rule, is very heavily involved with the students, very accessible. And again, that's partly a function of the fact that this is a small law school. You know, that really means a lot. We have a relatively small student body compared to, say, the law school where I went, University of Michigan. Our student body is about half the size of the student body at the University of Michigan, or at least that's my best guess. Yeah. And so that makes a big difference. It means that you're going to have closer relationships with your fellow students. It's a smaller, more personal environment, and you're also going to have better relationships with your professors.
I have to echo actually everything that Professor Johnson just said. I've never been met with a law school professor that has not been available or not wanted to talk after class. To illustrate this, it's not weird or anything to see a professor stay like 20 minutes after class to speak with students that have questions, and this arises a lot. And you know, whether it's a first-year civil procedure course or a second-year advanced legal research course, professors are definitely here for you and here to help you. And I even had a friend who told me, like, from his perspective on undergrad versus his perspective on law school, that his undergrad professors within his department were so inaccessible and so focused on, you know, their research, and there were these huge lectures, but here in law school he felt like, you know, he was cared about by these professors. Like, professors took the time to actually, you know, sort of mentor the students rather than focus on their research. And I think that's a great thing. We have a great class size and professors that understand the needs of their students.
I'll just piggyback on that. The question I think Becky and I get asked so much when we're on the road especially is, what makes Illinois special? What makes it different from other law schools? And it sounds trite, but it really does come back to these relationships. And I think that the relationships that you form here become so important that these are your first, whether you realize it or not as a student, you're actually creating your first professional contacts after you graduate. And the alumni loyalty that we have here, I think, is a direct result of the relationships that were formed here early on. So.
Yeah, I was going to say, to add to that, actually, I do a lot of work with the advancement team, so I speak with alumni a lot, and the faculty-student relationship, the strength of that is a sentiment that is echoed in our alumni base constantly. So yes. Even alums who graduated, you know, 30 years ago feel extremely strongly about their law school experience in a positive way because of yes. the relationships that they developed with faculty when they were here as students. So I think that speaks very highly of the faculty here at Illinois Law. Mm-hmm. So why don't we turn, because we have about 20 minutes, 15-20 minutes left, to talk a little bit about extracurricular opportunities that are available here at Illinois Law, and maybe we can actually go back to having Maggie speak momentarily about the ICSSP program, expand a little bit upon that, and then if you're involved in other extracurriculars, Maggie, if you can talk about those as well.
Sure. So ICSSP is kind of in its infancy. I am in my first semester of the program, and there are about 5 of us. This has come through a grant from the NSF, and originally the computer science department on campus started this program, and so a few of the principal investigators sort of wanted to expand it, and so throughout the years they've expanded it to the engineering school and now the law school because, well, there is an intersection in there, and they wanted to see, you know, law grads sort of go out into this field and, you know, help to address concerns that people within the cybersecurity field have. At this point, I'm taking some coursework within the computer science school and courses within the law school. It's definitely very interesting. It supplements my education to such a great degree, and I'm very happy that this law school has the program. At this point, I'm looking for employment for the summer because that's one of the needs of the program. You need to gain employment in the governmental sector. That can be state, local, or federal government during one of your second-year internships, and then for 2 years after graduation. And so this is a great program for people who are publicly minded, or for people who just want to work in the public sector for a bit and then maybe find something within the private sector. It's a hot industry, so there are tons of opportunities, and I think it was a matter of time that a law program was about to, you know, pick something up like this. And I think it's definitely showing you that U of I is really on the innovative side, and there are great things to come in the future.
Maggie, do you want to talk a little bit about what else you're involved in? I know you've got a couple other student organizations you're in.
I'm actually involved in the Women's Law Society, and I'm working on the symposium committee. In my first year in the law program, I was actually on the career development committee, and so that gave me sort of the leverage to get into another committee my second year. It's a great opportunity to get involved on the non-academic side, which is nice. You know, you're in class, you know, 8 hours a day, and it's nice to sort of meet people on a different level and sort of also network. And Women's Law Society is also really one of the biggest organizations at the U of I Law School, and we are open to definitely more than, well, not just females, but also males, and a lot of the alumna are very proud of WLS. They definitely come back for when we have different events, and they speak on different issues that affect women. And so it's definitely a way to, I don't know, get more ingrained into law school, and it makes you feel like you belong, especially if you're someone that, you know, is new to Illinois. I'm also involved in the Black Law Students Association. I am the secretary and also the community service director. It's a great organization. There are also other cultural organizations. We have the the Latin Law Students Association, and we also have the Asian American Law Students Associations. So we definitely have things for everyone, and we also have different organizations that are more, let's say, politically focused. So we have the American Constitutional Society, and then we also have the Federalist Society, and those are run actually by two of my really good friends. And so if you want to get more politically involved in law school, that's also a big thing that you can do. So it all just depends on what you're interested in, and even if you don't, or if you're not really prone to apply to any of these organizations or join any of these organizations, you can also just create your own. So it's pretty easy, and it's, once again, a great way to get involved in your community.
How many student orgs do we have in total, Becky, at this point?
I think we have over 35, so yeah, between 35 and 40. Some are more active than others, but as Maggie said, you know, if I would find it impossible that there wouldn't be an organization that you'd be interested in joining, but if that's the case, you can, you know, start your own. I know, you know, we've had various students start different organizations, and they tend to ebb and flow with the interests of the student. So, you know, some years one organization will be very active, and then, you know, something else will become of interest to our students. So a different organization will become, you know, a little bit more active. the Student Bar Association is student government at the College of Law, and they elect 4 different 1L representatives every year. They have a representative from each of the 3 sections, and they also have an overall 1L representative at large. So for students that want leadership opportunities right away when they start at the College of Law, Student Bar Association is a great way to get that experience. Pretty much right after classes start, those elections are held, and the Student Bar Association is sort of, like I said, student government. They put on social events for the college. They also, are involved and work with the administration on student concerns. So, that's sort of like the overarching student organization.
And beyond student organizations, we also bring in a lot of speakers and opportunities for students and members of the community to attend lectures throughout the year. Becky, Suzanne, and maybe even Vic, if you want to maybe expand upon just the types of speakers that we tend to bring in, talk a little bit more about that.
Sure.
Yeah, Vic.
Okay, sure. I'll take a stab. We have an amazing array of academic, judicial, professional speakers who come through each year and engage with our students. Just this year alone, so far we had Adam Liptak, who covers the Supreme Court for the New York Times. He came and talked about the John Roberts Supreme Court at its 10th anniversary. We've had 2 of the justices of the Illinois Supreme Court come talk to students about their experiences and what they look for in young professionals. We had a judge, Jennifer Elrod, from the United States Court of Appeals for the 5th Circuit in Texas, come and talk about what she thinks makes for good lawyering. Justice Sotomayor from the U.S. Supreme Court is coming in the spring, as well as some other household names that I don't want to mention now because we haven't put them on our website yet. Those are the non-academics we've had. But then when you consider all the amazing law professors we've had from Yale, from Stanford, from Harvard, from other places, coming and not just talking to our faculty, but talking to our students and engaging them. Yesterday we had a session between Michael Moore, who is a very prominent member of our own faculty in philosophy and the law, alongside Jeremy Waldron, who has an appointment at NYU Law School and Oxford University. And these are 2 of the leading legal philosophers in the world. And they were engaged in a discussion on so-called targeted killings. That's the practice that has been used by the United States and Israel in combating terrorism, where a country decides to take out individuals because they are involved in terrorism. So what we did to Osama bin Laden raises tremendous legal and moral and ethical issues. And we had a 2-hour session in which everyone in the audience was just completely enwrapped by the insights of these 2 folks. So I really encourage individuals who have any interest in the College of Law to look at our website, to look at our YouTube section, to listen to and watch some of the people we've had come through already. Just this semester alone, it's only 2 months old, and we've had just a dozen amazing events. I think that's a good way to get familiar with the law school and see the energy level we have here, the intellectual energy level that characterizes the place.
And I would also add that if you're an Illinois student, if you're currently on the Illinois campus, you're welcome to attend lectures that we have here. Most of them are free and open to the public. Like Vic said, this information is available on our website. And we are actually starting to communicate this out to the pre-law advising services, so they share that information on their blog, and we share it with several department advisors as well. But you can always reach out to us, reach out to Becky and Suzanne to get on our mailing list, and we'll make sure that we include you in email reminders when we have these upcoming events so that you can plan to attend.
Absolutely.
So we have just a few minutes left. Why don't we turn to just kind of a more broad sort of closing question, and anybody, I think any one of you could take a stab at this. What do you feel it takes for a student to be really, truly successful in law school?
Well, I will start. I mean, from a just pure, standpoint, you have to do the work. I mean, going to class it's not optional. You have to, be in the building and attending your lectures. Law school was the first thing that I did academically where doing what was assigned was not enough. That you really do have to engage with the material at least 3 times for it to really start sinking in, usually more than that. I had a study group that worked for me. Other people will choose, that will decide that having a study group is not for them. But going to class, doing the readings before you get to class, engaging with the material during class, not, playing on the internet or doing, the things that can be kind of tempting. Those, keeping your focus on the task at hand, I think, is incredibly important. But beyond the academic success, I think, taking advantage of the things that we have to offer in terms of your fellow students. Those are going to be people that can offer you a job. They could be a client, they might be a judge, they might be opposing counsel someday. I still keep in touch with many of my law school classmates, and they're doing incredible things. So you just don't know where your path might take you and where their paths are going to take them. So become part of the community. Engage with your fellow students. Engage with the faculty. I think that's sometimes a mistake students make, is they don't engage enough with the faculty, and they can offer you, advice, practical advice, substantive advice, as Professor Johnson was talking about. They know people, so that's networking. So I think going to the speakers, becoming a well-rounded attorney, even if it's a talk that you don't think you're interested in. If you want to do criminal law and the talk is something about intellectual property law, go. Someday you might have a client that, in addition to whatever issue they're seeing you about, also has, an intellectual property issue. So, you need to be well versed in things that aren't your particular area of expertise. So, I think that would be what my advice.
I might add one thing. I agreed with everything Becky said. I think the one area where law students today really need to improve as a whole, and it's not true of every law student at every school, but it's true even of most students, even at the very, very, very best schools like Illinois and the Ivy Leagues and the like, and that is the need to work on writing skills. Most everything a lawyer does in the real world involves written communication. That's true whether you're going to be a litigator. It's also true even if you're going to be a transactional lawyer, where you're drafting documents and the like. You need to be really good at clearly and precisely and elegantly writing about legal concepts and ideas. And we teach classes in legal research and writing. We're adding more all the time here in the College of Law. But writing is something that students have to do a lot of on their own to get good at. There's no way to become a good writer about the law unless and until you try to write about the law. So as you undertake your own legal education, you should look for opportunities to engage in writing. Now, maybe that's joining a journal like the Illinois Law Review and working on articles. Or maybe it's just writing a paragraph here and there in answering the notes and questions in each of your textbooks. Instead of just thinking about the answer, actually write it down, share it with classmates, email it to your professor. Students need to get in the habit of doing that more and more going forward, because that's where I think the real world detects there's a gap between how smart students are and what they know on the one hand, and how they are able to convey that in a way that the rest of the world can use on the other hand.
And if I could just follow up on that, I would agree 100%. Writing is tremendously important. Actually, when students do ask me about summer reading for the summer before law school, I sometimes recommend reading a book, not on legal writing, but just on writing in general. And the reason is in part the ability to communicate and convey what you figured out. But I think that as lawyers, we all realize that no, writing is also an essential part of figuring out what it is that we want to communicate in the first place. You know, along with clarity of expression comes clarity of thinking and clarity of organization, and those are really fundamental skills for you as an attorney and as a law student. And unless you practice getting things down on paper, Chief Justice Roberts has mentioned before. I think it was during his confirmation hearings. Sometimes you think you know what you're going to say, and then when you sit down to write it, you realize that it doesn't write. That you can't write it. That you haven't figured it out well enough. Writing is essential to figuring out what it is that you think about something too. So really, it is a really fundamental skill for law students.
Great. We actually have a question from a student that I want to make sure we answer before we hang up. We have a student that had applied in late September, and his application was marked as incomplete because he was registered for the October LSAT. Since his score was released last week, he was just wondering when the review of his application will begin. So Becky or Suzanne, do you think you could handle that one?
Sure. We will start reviewing applications in the next couple weeks in early to mid-November. He might get a decision before Thanksgiving, but certainly before the holidays.
Excellent. Okay. I think that's basically all the time we have. So I just want to thank everybody so much for participating. Our speakers, thank you so much for taking the time to kind of give a really nice perspective on Illinois law to students that are interested. And thank you to the students who took the time to watch and to ask questions today. This will be archived on our YouTube channel, and if there are any other additional questions that you have, definitely feel free to visit our website, law.illinois.edu. The contact information for the admissions team is right there, and they are happy to answer your questions. I know Becky would also encourage you to please schedule a visit, come visit us anytime. We have open houses coming up in the spring for admitted students, so that's a good opportunity for admits to come and visit. But if you're a prospective and you're just interested in learning more about the law school and you want to actually come here, take a look around, sit in on a class, that's absolutely something that we can accommodate. So we hope to hear from you, and we hope to see many of you applying coming up soon.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.